Pound for Pound Sports, everybody. I'm Nick.
And I'm Darren.
And it seems like this is like the 15th show we've done today. We've got to be getting up there sooner or later.
At least 13th.
But first, before we get to all that good stuff, I want to mention out a couple of amazing sponsors that have helped us out and made this all possible. No particular order. Spray Art Finishers for the amazing powder coat that you can probably see on our amazing set. All these multiple camera angles. PSI for the steel work. A lot of good steel work here too, man. Thank you guys so much. You did a fantastic job, and you guys really just make us look good out there.
Yeah, and I want to thank Vince Biondo, general contractor, contracted this whole thing. He's got a link on our website, pfpsports.com. Check him out. And last but not least, alphadognutrition.com. Get yourself some Muscle Instinct. Get yourself anything. He's got all kinds of supplements on there, alphadognutrition.com.
Definitely, man. Good people out there. Thank you so much for your love and your support. Got one story to get to, and then a couple of big fights coming up, so let's just get right to it.
Yeah, do it.
Biggest thing that stuck out to me in the MMA news, headlines world, whatever you want to call it, Feijão Cavalcante fails his drug test. He took the last-minute opponent. He seemed more than gracious with the change. He looked great out there. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the guy, he ended up testing dirty for stanozolol metabolites after he won by submission over Mike Kyle in 33 seconds. I mean, The guy just looked like an absolute monster. I mean, so much of a monster. I mean, you really couldn't even take anything away from that fight. Yeah,
you know what? I mean, it's such a bad moment for Strikeforce. I feel like I've been saying that for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Strikeforce, I mean, if it wasn't for the Showtime and the Zuffa backing, I mean, God, this promotion would got to be on the way out. Just with everything from the programming to the announcing to now all their stars leaving or doping. I mean, it's just such a bad time to be a Strikeforce employee.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on the announcing and the production part of it, because I actually like that about Strikeforce. It's something different. I don't know that I like jokes necessarily being crowbarred in there every 2 seconds. My favorite word. But that said, these guys, I mean, they can't take too many more blows like this. I mean,
no.
This is even worse than. He's months. I mean, Ed Soares says, they're going to fight it, but I mean, I don't see, I haven't seen any kind of failed drug test turn over like
everybody
this.
always fights it, and look what happens. Unless you play on the Milwaukee Brewers, it never gets overturned. And luckily for Strikeforce, what they do have is Ronda Rousey, who appears to be just the most dominating woman fighter out there.
Who's not also on steroids?
Yeah,
might add.
We don't know.
That's a great point you might want to throw in there.
Yeah.
They are going to take the win for Feijão, and they're going to overturn it and rule it a no decision. So it doesn't hurt Kyle in the least. I mean, it still sucks that he went out like that. I mean, a submission. I don't know. It's really hard to say how the steroids played into a 33-second fight.
We bring up a good point that we talked about the Chavez Jr. boxing match earlier,
right.
And Emmanuel Stewart said, look, if these guys aren't playing tennis, they're not playing golf. I mean, this is a combat sport.
Right.
This guy could hurt my value of life. I mean, and it's absolutely right. I mean, the testing has got to be done, and we need some strict penalties because, I mean, it's starting to get out of control.
Well, you know what? It's never more evident than when you talk to a guy like Rich Bonfadini, who we did just a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at a guy who, is telling you about how hard it is to train and provide for a family, and everybody says they do this to put food on the table, but, people literally do that in a lot of areas, and it's really unfortunate,
Yeah, it sure is.
It's hard to imagine when you look at a guy like Feijão that he's on steroids. I don't know how anybody got that idea, but I mean, it's I don't know, man. It's kind of screaming at you right there in the face.
Yeah.
Enough of that. On to one of my favorite guys of all time. I'm always been a huge Babalu fan, and the reason for that, the guy's had his ticket punched a few times, but the guy is just game as hell. I mean, this guy, if you look at his resume, I mean, he's fought a who's who list of people out there. I mean, even heavyweights, Fedor. I mean, he's actually done catch wrestling against Frank Mir. I mean, this guy takes on all comers. How could you not be a fan?
No, I mean, I'm a big fan of Babalu, and the thing about Babalu that I kind of like the most is there's no question the guy's got a screw loose. I mean, there's zero question about that. I mean, the guy be the first one to hang on to a choke a little too long, puts it in that gray area. But I'm a fan of Babalu. I mean, he'll be co-headlining ONE FC. I believe it's this weekend. I got some stuff going on this weekend.
It is.
But,
it's Saturday night. He's going opposite his countryman and teammate Fabricio Verdum. I mean, and actually, it's good that you brought that up. With some of the annex of Babalu and just the way he comes off in interviews, because today we actually threw up a lot of stuff. If you look on our video news scroll, tons of Babalu stuff. I'm actually going to leave that up for the next couple days, because if you watch any Babalu interview out there, the guy has no filter whatsoever.
No.
The guy tells exactly he tells it like it is. And maybe if it's not like that, he'll at least you know what's on the guy's mind. You know where he's shooting from.
And it goes back a little bit to him having a loose screw, which is exactly why I love him.
What you see is what you get with that guy. So he's fighting a guy named Tetsuya Mizuno. He happens to be 11-7. A lot of people haven't seen that guy in the UFC. He's fought in Shuto and Pride. He's predominantly been in Japan. Like I said, he's 11-7. You look at Babalu. He had the knockout loss to Dan Henderson back in December 2010. So he's been on the shelf for well over a year. They say it takes a little bit of time to heal some of those knockouts. I mean, it's not an exact science, but if you choose to look at it that way, he has been on the shelf for a minute. And coincidentally, Babalu has about as many losses on his record, but it took 3 times as many fights against top. So I think that really tells you all you need to know right there.
Yeah.
Unless Babalu slips on a banana peel somewhere, I don't think he's going to lose this fight. I'm not going to say he's going to steamroll over the guy, but it's hard for me to imagine him going home with anything other than a win.
I completely agree with you. I think he wins this fight, and he wins it pretty easy.
And you know what? If they want to throw cans at Babalu, whatever, I'll watch him knock him down all day. Like I said, I love Babalu, and you're talking about a guy who's been a pro for 10 years. I mean, that's an accomplishment in itself. Next, we got UFC on FX4, Maynard versus Guida. We mentioned it over on Fox Sports West that some of these smaller cards have been some of the best ones out there, the ones that you didn't have to pay for. And, I was thinking about it today, and I kind of wonder if part of the reason for that is because, you have a roster, like I said, I'm always saying it's 400 deep, but it is. You got so much talent, and each one of these guys that they pick from all these other regional organizations, I mean, they're all highly skilled athletes, and, you need a stage and a show for some of these guys. And Joe Silva, I hate to be on that guy's jock every single week, but I mean, I literally sit here and say every week, man, I can't believe how good the matchups are. They give you the matchups you want to see. So with that said, Darren, we got one of your boys in the top pound for pound featherweight rankings. I think you had a number 3, Hatsu Haoki versus Ricardo Lamas.
What a phenomenal fight! This fight has got potential #1 contender all over it.
Oh yeah,
Haoki, I have him my number 3 featherweight. You can check out my rankings, by the way, pfesports.com.
Good stuff.
Both guys are 2-0 in the UFC. Lamas is probably a better. I'd give him the edge in the stand-up department, but Hatsu Haoki, I mean, is just a beast when it comes to taking guys down and basically just controlling the fight. And I actually see him exactly winning the fight that way. 3-round unanimous decision, 30-27, controlling the fight every aspect.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. Lamas, he did submit Cub Swanson, and he TKO'd Matt Grice. But that said, Haoki's 14-1-1 in his last 16 fights. I mean, the guy's been everywhere. He's got deceptive legs through the high guard transition. I mean, the guy's he's just crafty and unorthodox. And you know what? That's what I love about Asian fighters at the end of the day.
This fight, no question, the winner of this fight puts himself on the map for a title shot.
Oh,
and the amazing thing about that is it's on the undercard, or I don't even know. It's on the FX card is what
It's literally one of the first fights you're going to see.
It's on the FX card, and I mean, it's just crazy to me the amount of talent that we're getting on some of these free cards.
No, it's truly unbelievable. Speaking of undercards, you got Rick Story against Brock Jardine. I mean, this is a career-defining moment for Rick Story.
Sure
I mean, you mentioned a guy who's taken fights on short notice. The UFC loves guys that step up. I mean, let's face it. Every organization out there has been snake bit by the injury bug. If you could be bit by a bug. And, like I said, there's only so much that will do for you, though. You know what I mean? Like, they love guys that'll step up, but at, some point, 2, 3, 4 losses on a record, I mean, it's pretty much the kiss of death in the UFC. I mean, how do you get around that?
It sure is. And he hasn't looked that impressive in his last 2 fights. It's one thing to go out there, give a great performance, and you lost. But it almost like he maybe got a little outworked.
He got out-hustled, and he got frustrated. It was very clear in his last 2 fights against Charlie Brenneman and Martin Kampmann. I mean, he just got frustrated out there. I mean, Martin Kampmann tends to frustrate a lot of people. I mean, there's no shame in losing to a guy like Kampmann. But
with that, Brock Jardine's making his UFC debut. He's got a different animal with Rick Story than what he's used to fighting.
Octagon jitters, Rick Story, that's a lot to overcome.
Yeah, I think Story gets back on track in this fight and puts together a pretty impressive performance.
And you know what? If he doesn't, I mean, it's very hard to make an argument for the guy staying in the UFC. I mean, you don't want to say any fight is tailor-made for somebody, but I mean, this is. I mean, he has to win, and he has to win big. I think that he will. I'm going with Rick Story in this fight.
Yep.
Next fight, you got Ross Pearson, Cub Swanson. Another fantastic matchup. You got Pearson, who won tough. He's 5-2 in the UFC, not counting his any of the fights in tough. He's won fight of the night 2 times. I mean, this guy's game is anybody. I mean, this guy's he's got losses against Cole Miller and Edison Barboza, but he did beat Dennis Seaver at lightweight, and he does have a win against Spencer Fisher in that same span. I mean, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think we're a little different on this one. Ross Pearson, I like his technical striking, and I think that's what's going to win him this fight. Cub Swanson is a game opponent, but he's been put away before, and I just see at the end of the day Ross Pearson catching him. Basically, I think he's going to win by knockout.
I think either guy could really catch the other guy. I mean, I think the edge in probably power would probably be on Ross Pearson's side. The thing about Cub Swanson though, he looked fantastic in his last fight. Injuries and last-minute replacements have been the story of that guy's career, more or less. That said, he's got a great camp behind him this time. It's a great style matchup for both guys, as I said, and it is a career-defining moment for Cub Swanson. I do believe he'll rise to the occasion, and that's where we part ways. I'm going with Cub Swanson on this one.
You have it.
Gotta love it. Sam Stout versus Spencer Fisher. This is the rubber match. A lot of people were kind of shocked to find out that Sam Stout is what he is in the odds in the sports books.
Yeah,
and
huge favorite. Yeah.
Huge favorite. And you're talking about a guy that didn't finish Spencer Fisher, and he's also lost to the same guy. So, I mean, this might be what they refer to as a sleeping dog if you don't listen to us on Fox Sports Radio Vegas. But this is as big a one as you can get here. And there's no secret here. Sam Stout likes to bang. He likes to throw a high volume of punches. Spencer Fisher, he's a southpaw. He's a little more well-rounded. He's a little more tricky on the ground. I just don't think he's going to be able to do anything with Sam Stout. I think Sam Stout will come out and probably establish his will early, and that's the downfall of Spencer Fisher. He can't get outstruck. Otherwise, it's doomed for that guy.
Yeah, and Spencer Fisher, he is a plus 225 in some books. I saw him.
It's a bit much.
This is a rubber match. You ask Spencer Fisher, he thinks he won both the first two fights. Maybe he did. I mean, they were both great fights, but he's lost 4 out of his last 5, and he's just on the downward, spiral. I mean, it's late in his career.
I think either way, this is probably going to be the last you see of Spencer Fisher.
And I think it should be. I think he should go out, on his terms, and he's had a great career. With that being said, Sam Stout, I think he's going to win this fight.
Yeah, I got Sam Stout in this one, too. Last but not least, Gray Maynard, Clay Guida. I mean, this is about as good of a matchup as you could possibly ask for. Again, they're giving away this stuff for free. I don't know how they do it, but they do. If anybody's got a DVR, you just fast forward through those commercials, you're good to go. You don't even notice the difference. Gray Maynard, you got Gray Maynard, Clay Guida, both great wrestlers. In my opinion, it's really going to come down to the pace. Who pushes the pace? Who lands the more significant strikes? I think the wrestling is going to be a wash. I don't see either guy being able to necessarily out-hustle the other guy and use the wrestling to dominate. It's just not that type of fight for either guy. If I got to pick somebody, I'm going with Clay Guida. Who do you got?
Yeah, Gray Maynard, he's kind of a grinder out. Some call him boring, said that earlier. But one thing I like about Gray Maynard is he switched camps. He's not training with Extreme Couture for this fight, which I think is only going to benefit him. And
for every fighter, I think. You got to switch it up.
He needs to work on his striking, and although his striking's come out looking pretty decent his last couple fights, with that being said, I think Clay Guida has what it takes to kind of cancel out the wrestling. I want to say that's both those guys' strong suit. Clay Guida just brings a phenomenal pace. I mean, the guy's gas tank is crazy. I've never seen that guy tired and just constantly moving and bouncing around with his hair. But I see these odds plus 225, Clay Guida. I got to throw some cash on that.
Yeah, that's definitely another sleeping dog. I mean, you talk about a guy who if he loses, it's because he made a mistake. It's not because he got out hustled, outworked, or outclassed. I mean, he makes mistakes, and like I said, it's just you got to be with a good camp. I believe he's with that, and I think that's going to be the difference. But could see this fight going either way. I would not be surprised.
No question.
Absolutely. When was the last time you ever saw a free card on TV? Friday and then a pay-per-view on Saturday. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. This card's kind of tailor-made for Brazil. They've already been privy to who won the competition. How bad Vanderlei actually his team as a whole didn't really have a whole lot of wins on it, and it's unfortunate here in the States because we're just now getting an opportunity to watch it, and I will still watch it for the entertainment value. They're bringing a lot of good fighters on the show, and from what I hear, there were a lot of good fights. But again, it kind of spoils it. It makes it
sure
less.
Does.
It just holds less weight with me, man.
I don't think this, UFC 147 is going to do great in the pay-per-view buy department. But with that being said, we got a change in main event. But I'm not even really sure the original main event would have done that good in the pay-per-view sales.
I don't know that it would have either. Like I said, it's tailor-made for Brazil. I mean, that was clearly the better matchup for the Brazilian fans. What you're going to see on this is a lot of good fighters from Brazil. Yuri Alcantara, Hakan Diaz, featherweight matchup. Yuri's 3-0. He's knocked out Ricardo Lamas, coincidentally. And Diaz has an 8-fight winning streak running through everybody in Shoot 2 Brazil. So you got a lot of guys debuting on the main stage. It's a good opportunity for them. There's a guy actually on the undercard I'm actually really looking forward to. Pepe Castro, 8-0. He's put everybody away in his entire career. I mean, like I said, you come up through the levels and the ranks. Good organization, bad. I don't really care. I mean, anybody that's finishing everybody. I mean, that's impressive. I want to see him fight and hopefully finish Rony Bazera. That's another featherweight. But skipping straight ahead to the co-main event, who do you have winning this fight? Do you have anything other than Fabricio Verdum in this?
No, it's hard for me to even figure out a way that Russo could win. I mean, Russo, he's done good against lower competition, but I mean, this is the big leagues here. He's fighting Fabricio Verdum. I got him number 7 in my heavyweight rankings. I mean, in his country, which if anything, I think that actually put a little bit more pressure on Verdum. But
maybe
Verdum's got world-class ground game. His hands are improving. He's looking better every fight. His last UFC fight against Roy Nelson, absolutely dominated him, and. I can't find a way that he loses this fight. No.
Yeah, I can't either. I mean, he's got not only one of the most dangerous guards as a heavyweight, but in all of mixed martial arts. And I mean, look at the Fedor fight. I mean, you cannot go to this guy's guard, and especially when you're dry. Mike Russo, he's got great takedowns. But like I said, that's going to spell trouble for him because that's going to take him exactly where he doesn't want to be in Verdum's guard. You look at Russo.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You've seen the smaller promotions. I mean, don't judge a book by its cover. At the end of the day, that's one thing I always walk away from smaller promotions thinking is don't judge a book by its cover. Russo has the uncanny ability to come back. He's got a lot of heart. You've never seen a better example of that when he had a last-minute KO against a guy that was supposed to and who. For all intents and purposes, was mopping the floor with him and Todd Duffy. But like I said, I don't see Todd Duffy or Fabricio Verdum in the same. And one thing I like about Verdum is that he's got kind of like this slapping style of boxing. It's not really intended to knock you out, but what it does is upset your timing and allows people to be taken down.
Yeah.
Or for him to pull guard. Like he uses his striking to set people up for other things. I like that about him, and that's pretty much the way I see it going. I think he can have his way with Russo anywhere this fight goes. We'll see with that. I don't think anybody's going to go against Verdum in that one. And if they do, there's going to be some very happy people if they have the stones to bet on Russo. I mean, that's got to be, one of the biggest underdogs I've seen in recent memory. But takes us right to the main event, Vanderlei Silva, Rich Franklin. This is a rematch of the fight that they had at UFC 99. That one coincidentally won Fight of the Night. I thought it was Fight of the Night. Fantastic fight. It kind of surprised me the first time around just because I didn't think it was going to go all 3 rounds. Not in the least. I mean, do you think this is a good fill-in for Vanderlei Silva, and is it a better opportunity for him to showcase his skills?
It is. It's just weird. It seems like it's been so long since Rich Franklin's fought, and he's only, I think it was February last year, the last time we seen him in the cage, and then there was another long layoff before that. So, last couple of years we've only seen him fight once. Rich Franklin, Vanderlei Silva, there's no secret both these guys on the back end of their career. And Vanderlei Silva lost 6 of his last 9, and he's been KO'd in a lot of them. I know Lieben, Hendo, I think KO'd him.
Yeah, I mean,
Quentin
he's
Jackson,
had, but that's what makes Vanderlei an exciting style of fighter. And, at the end of the day, I think it's that brawling style. That's the question for me in this fight.
No doubt.
You remember the last couple of Brazil fight cards? I mean, you heard soccer chants. It was some of the most amazing crowds I've ever seen or heard. And sometimes, like I said, we talk about the perils of fighting or training in your own hometown and how much extra pressure that brings. But for me, that's what we watched him train with Lyoto Machida. He's trying to defend straight combinations and throw them as well. He hasn't tried that a lot in his career, but when he has, he's had some pretty good success with it. But will he deviate from the plan? Will the crowd be too much? In my opinion, I think. I just think that's going to be too much for him to overcome. As much as it pains me to say this, I got to go against Vanderlei. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. I just think it's too much pressure, and he's going to deviate from the plan.
I don't disagree with you. I think it is a lot of pressure. But, Rich Franklin, such a long layoff, over a year, I got to think that has some effect. And it's not like Vanderlei Silva's fighting every other month. I'm not trying to say that.
No.
But over the year layoff, he's 37 years old now. I got to think that has some effect on him.
Well, think about this. I mean, he hasn't fought. You mentioned the days. February of 2011. He loses to Forrest Griffin. He hasn't had a win since Chuck Liddell in June of 2010. I mean, think about that. Hasn't won in 2 years. So, I mean, this isn't exactly the same Rich Franklin we saw at UFC 99 either. So
no, it isn't. And with that said, Vanderlei Silva, he'll win some, he'll lose some, but, not a better guy to put your $100 on because, he's going to give it everything he has. And, he'll knock a dude out or he'll get knocked out. But it's going to be a good fight. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
One thing you'll never see is a boring Vanderlei Silva
Absolutely
fight.
not. Absolutely not. With that being said, I got Vanderlei Silva winning this fight.
That's interesting.
I think the long layoff's going to be too much to overcome. Maybe Vanderlei Silva could rally around the home crowd and knock him out.
you know what? You bring up a good point, and that's just yet another question for this fight. And like I said, it's you talk about a good fill-in replacement. I mean, Vanderlei was supposed to fight Vitor, but at the end of the night, there are a lot of questions that we have going into this fight card as it relates to that main event, and they're all going to be answered. And for that, I definitely think it's worthy of that buy. You've got to buy it. That takes us to our last and favorite segment, at least it is mine. Take it to the book. I was going to talk about Pedro Hizo and Fedor earlier today. Fedor knocks him out in 90 seconds, and it went pretty much how a lot of people were thinking it was going to go. Even still, I still think it was ridiculous to have Pedro Hizo at a plus 1150. I mean, the kind of money the books were leaving on the table. I mean, in my opinion, that's them buying into the M1 hype. I mean, do you think that's a little ridiculous?
Without question. I'm not even sure. A plus 1100. I'm not even sure we yank our producer out of his little setback there. He'd be a plus 11. I mean, that's crazy money we're talking about.
That's a good point.
When's the last time we've seen something like that in MMA? That's just
in MMA, boxing, maybe a Mayweather against some can, maybe he'll be, maybe. But I mean, a Klitschko against another can. But very rarely in MMA do you see anything, any favorite over 10-1. That's
and
crazy.
With that being said, Fedor announced his retirement. Glad to hear. I think it's time for him to move on. I mean, been a great heavyweight for the sport, and there's always going to be that argument. Who was the best? I think those Sherdog homers and all those guys will have you think that he's always been the best, but I'd argue that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's
a great career nonetheless.
A brilliant, amazing career. I actually hope that he decides to go out on this highlight. That would be. There really is no better way to go out. I mean, he's not going to be a champion in any organization. He'll always be a champion in the world of MMA, but. Perfect time for him to ride off in the sunset, and if he does, we're never going to hear from M1 Global again, more than likely, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Let's hope not.
So I'm going to go give you my takes of the book picks. I got Sam Stout, minus 350, Clay Guida, plus 250. That kind of balances things out. Verdum's a heavy favorite, obviously, minus 550, and I'm going to throw a fourth leg onto this parlay at Rich Franklin, minus 175. So you got a four-teamer right there, $100 a payout, 735. So you got better than 7-1 odds. 3 out of the 4 favorites. That's how I'm going to go.
Yeah, I got just a little 3 fight. I like Ross Pearson, minus 190. I actually think he's going to win that fight kind of easily. No disrespect to Cub Swanson, but I think he's going to win that fight easy.
Well,
could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Recently, but I think he's going to win that fight easy. Clay Guida, plus 290. Vanderlei Silva, plus 150. We got an underdog heavy little parlay. Not really sure I have the stones to put $100 on that, but maybe 10, 20.
Well, hey, it's your money.
Yeah.
It's your money. That said...
And again, I will post my winning ticket on the website.
Well, you go ahead and do that.
All right.
And I can't wait to see it, buddy. We'd like to thank AlphaDogNutrition.com. Thanks so much for your belief in our show, Blake. And we thank everybody for making this show possible.
Yeah.
Check us out, pfpsports.com, at Nick, PFP Sports, my Twitter.
I'm at Darren, PFP Sports. Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/pound for pound sports.
And we're going to be doing some giveaways. So thank you so much for your love and your support. We will catch you next time. Peace.
Cheers.